Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome, man. Good talking to you. This new book, The Map Thief, out now. Looks like the paperback's going to be out tomorrow. This is a cool book. I mean, this is the type of book where I feel like you can actually judge it by its cover and say, yes, I think I want to read that. So basically, what inspired you to do this? Because you had to do a lot of research for this book.
Yeah, well, I did do a lot of research, but it was really a pleasure because I've always been a huge fan of maps since I was a kid. I would, be in the passenger seat of my dad's car, following along on the AAA triptych as we went on family vacations. I've always been fascinated with maps for the way that they explain our world and inspire our imagination. And so it was really cool to learn more about some of these older maps that I hadn't known about before.
So how did you get clued in on this particular story? You know, it chronicles the thefts of E. Forbes Smiley. How did you become fascinated with him or just kind of learn about him in the first place?
Well, this story came out, it first happened in 2005 was when he was caught, and I remember reading about it in the news. I remember reading about it in an article in the New Yorker, and just being fascinated by this world of these map dealers and map collectors who were willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for these pieces of paper with these maps on them. And in a way, I could understand it. In a way, I wanted to know more about it. And the one aspect of the story that had never been told was the story of Smiley himself. He had never talked to the press before. And so back in 2011, after he gotten out of prison, I went and contacted him, and he agreed to talk to me. And after about 4 hours sitting across the picnic table speaking with him, I realized that I had a book on my hands, and so it just went from there.
Pretty wild story. Now, when it comes to these maps, why were they so expensive? What makes a map valuable? Is it just the fact that they're old, they're rare, a combination of that, or is there some other factor that made some of these maps so expensive?
Well, I think it starts with the fact that they're really works of art. I mean, the artistry in some of these maps that are hundreds of years old is really just as much as in an etching by Rembrandt or a painting by Vermeer. I mean, they were hung on people's walls just as works of art hundreds of years ago. And yet they also played really important roles in history and in exploration and conquest and trade. And so particularly in the late 80s and early 90s, they became really in vogue to collect these things right alongside fine art, and the prices just went up and up and up, and the libraries just weren't prepared for that, and they weren't, in some cases, didn't even know what they had on their hands, and opened it up to be stolen.
Yeah, you mentioned the word history right there. Does the book, The Map Thief, does it also kind of double as a history lesson in any way?
Yeah, I really think of it as 3 books in one. It's definitely this history of cartography, which I found particularly intriguing when I was researching it. It's also this kind of exploration of this strange subculture of map dealers and map collectors, which has a number of characters, as you might imagine. And then it's at its root, it's this psychological profile of this thief who is a very complex character and not in any way your kind of central casting, criminal mastermind. He was a very charming person, a very generous person in many ways, but he became very desperate and ended up turning to the dark side and betraying the people who trusted him. So it's really works on a number of levels, I hope.
Yeah, the dark side. That's some Jedi stuff right there. Now, I gotta ask you, this story, a lot of it reminds me of movies like Catch Me If You Can or Blow, things like that, where there's, crime going on, but it's a very good character piece. Do you have any intentions in taking a story like this that you piece together, a true story, and, write that into some kind of screenplay? Because things like this turn out to be really excellent movies.
Yeah, I'd love to see this in a movie. I do have a film agent who's been shopping around Hollywood and, keeping my fingers crossed. It's it's not your, as you say, it's not your average heist movie. It's not Ocean's 11 or the Italian Job. It's much more of kind of a Catch Me If You Can. It's a more psychological story, and so it would have to be done the right way. But yeah, I'd love to see this in a film because I think this character at the center of it really could captivate the screening.
Yeah, no doubt. I would definitely check that out. Now, but of course, this book just came out. The Map Thief just came out. So people need to, let it gestate a while and, of course, just read it in the first place. But you mentioned in the book that Smiley's victims claim that he stole a lot more maps than, he was really punished for. So do you think that in any way is going to open up the opportunity to, say, write another book about this topic somewhere down the line if more information comes out?
I don't know. I did include a appendix in the book of all the maps that the libraries are missing in hopes that maybe someone would read that and start checking their own collection and maybe returning some of the ones that haven't been recovered now. I'm an investigative reporter. I tend to pick a topic and I really deeply research it and work on it for a number of years. This one took me 3 years to write. So I wouldn't rule out doing another map book, but I think there's probably other topics that I want to explore with that same kind of focus as well before I turn back to maps. But who knows? I wouldn't rule out anything.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What are you working on now?
Well, that's the big question, right? Right now I'm promoting this book, but I'm always having my ears open for that another great story, another great narrative that kind of fires on all cylinders. I mean, this one was great because it had the history aspect, it has the character aspect, it has the crime aspect, and it's hard to find a story that really works on so many levels. So I've got my ears open.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the book is awesome, especially, the pictures you have in this book of some of the maps are just like, whoa, I can totally see what you mean by them just being works of art.
The maps, just so people could understand what it is that we're talking about here, because some of them really are beautiful.
No, they definitely are. Like, they're the type of things you could hang up in your house and no one would question it. They'd be like, that's a cool piece of art.
Yeah. Now, I have one final question. If somebody does have a map that, they purchased legally or they purchased from somebody, but it happens to be stolen and then maybe they find out that from your book, what do they do with a stolen map? I mean, if they want to do the right thing, who do they give that to?
Well, I mean, they'd have to contact the authorities. They'd have to contact the FBI. They have an art crime division. And essentially, what happens in the case of the maps that Smiley stole, he sold most of them to dealers, who then sold them on to collectors. And when they were returned to the libraries, oftentimes the dealers would reimburse the collectors for selling them stolen property, but they were the ones that were actually holding the bag in the end. So it's not without some financial strain that someone would come forward, but it is the right thing, and I hope some people do.
Right on, man. Well, Michael the Map Thief out now. Paperback out tomorrow. This is a really cool book. Definitely recommend it to anyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today, and we definitely can't wait to see what you're going to be investigating here in the near future, because you're pretty damn good at it, man.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Great to talk to you.